Hey, what's up, Internet? So today we want to go over a tool called Styled Components. This is a tool I've been using a lot at my current software engineering role, and essentially it's a pretty interesting piece of technology which allows you to write CSS within JavaScript, and essentially you don't have to map between your CSS files and your JavaScript files. You can do that automatically. There's a lot of other interesting benefits, like if you want to use server-side rendering with something like Next.js, that's definitely possible. We're not going to go over that in this video, but let's go ahead and get started. So this is what we have here, and if you look at our project directory, essentially we've just used CRA or create React app to get up and running quickly. And then here we have just your traditional JavaScript. And then here we've created components directory, and we're going to call this adopt. So we're creating adopt component, and we're going to essentially create a page or style a page with styled components so that you can adopt a Boston Terrier more specifically. So if you click here, it will bring you to adoptaboston.com. And if you click here, it will go to Pet Finder and show you all the Boston Terriers, the cute, adorable puppy dogs that you could 94117. Let's say that we're in San Francisco, and we'll say anywhere. Essentially, that you could adopt. So this is sort of a personal interest that I've thought a lot about, whether or not I want to adopt a dog, not boss a dog, but adopt a dog, more specifically a Boston Terrier. I think they're super cute. Like, look at Buster. How adorable is he? But anyway, let's figure out how to do that with styled components. So if you go to styled-components.com and you go to the docs, then there's an installation tab. And if you're using something like npm, you can just copy this. So I'll flip back over to our project directory. I'll go to our package.json file just to show you that it should show up QRS, something like right here on line 12. So we'll do that. And let's see what happens. So bada bing, bada boom. It's taking a hot second. My computer is definitely not the fastest. But you know, there's that saying, the tortoise wins the race or something compared to the hare. Anyway, but let's open up another instance of our terminal here. You'll see styled components is now there. So if we go into the files that we'll be working with, currently we have this adopt.css file. And if you look at our adopt component, what we have here is we're importing our CSS. Then we have a few divs with different class names. We have the text that you see here on this page. And then we have essentially, well, this is embarrassing. Essentially, we should be using ESLint and Prettier to automatically format this. But we have a div called sites, and then we have an anchor tag with buttons so that when you click the button, it'll bring you to the URLs specified here. So what we want to do is we want to take the sort of style components and replace what we're getting from import.css. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up a second window, and then here I will hit Command P on Mac, and I'll go to adopt.css. So the way that you can use style components really varies on your use case, but what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to say we're going to import styled from styled components. We'll let autocomplete complete that for us. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a constant. So the way we're going to create a constant is, let's say that this is going to be adopt. Now you'll notice that we're going to run into an issue in 1 second, but let's just do it for fun. So you declare your constant, and then you say styled, and then whatever HTML tag you want here. So in this case, it's going to be a div, so styled.div. And then we're going to use the little ticks so that we're going to use template literals here. And then we will add whatever class we have here. So what we can do is we can go and we can copy all of this, and we can paste it here. And again, if I had Prettier and ESLint configured on this project, my life would be so much easier. And here you can see that there's a parsing error. So what is this parsing error saying? It's already been declared. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to give it a different label. So adopt container. And then you'll say here, ESLint is telling us that the container is never used. So when we go over here and we inspect our beautiful, beautiful page, you'll see that here we have our app and it has a class of adopt. So again, that's this instant here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this styled component that we used and we're going to replace it where, oops, not quite like that. So we're gonna try that one more time. So we'll double click this and you'll see that it replaced that div with the styled component. Now you can have a class name, but you don't need to have that. So we're gonna just delete that and I'm gonna hit a hard refresh and you'll notice that the site can't be loaded because what we actually have to do is we have to do, let's do npm I just to make sure that everything is up to date. We probably don't need to do that because technically we installed styled components through npm. So now everything's set and ready. So I think it's npm start, but we can just go back to our package.json folder and we look at the scripts here. So let's do npm start. I'm gonna exit out of this. So this is gonna npm start. This is gonna launch React script start, which is going to mean that our server here on local 3000 should now work. Now I'm crossing my fingers because publicly this would be incredibly embarrassing if it doesn't work, but you know, I've had worse things happen in life. So here we go. Before, remember that when we went to inspect here, it said adopt, and now it's having essentially this this uglified version of the component. And there's a few things we can do to actually sort of improve the readability of this, but we'll get that in a separate video. But essentially here we have our adopt component. So you'll notice the same text that we had before is now here. So let's say, like, what if we essentially wanted a different video, right? So this is that Boston video there, but what if we wanted to go to something like unsplash.com and then we'll do Boston Terrier, just to prove to you that it works. So these dogs are silly cute, in my humble opinion. So I think we're using this one, right? Well, what if we wanted to use, honestly, I think this one's like pretty amazing. So we'll open it, we'll right click, we'll copy the image address, we'll go back to VS Code, and then here we'll scroll over in a painfully slow way and we'll paste that new image. Then we'll go to our React app and boom, there it is. So that's our first sort of instance of style components, which means that if we wanted to go to adopt.css, like, this is no longer relevant, right? So in a real project, we would probably just remove that line. And if you come back here, you can see that it is still working. So I think that's pretty cool, but how would we go about that and do some of the rest of these? So first, let's do sort of something that I find interesting. Let's imagine that you wanted to have something inside of this adopted container and you wanted it to have a class. So let's say that for the CTA, the call to action component, we didn't want to create it to its own styled components, but we just wanted to essentially allow it to have this existing class. So what you can do there is you can take all of this text, and then one of the cool things about styled components, it allows you to do nesting. So you can just paste that in here. Essentially, it becomes a styled item. And then let's go ahead and here, let's delete that. And if all goes well, we'll see that it's the same. Okay, so how do we figure out if this all makes sense? So what if we didn't want this to have a linear background? Let's remove that for a sec, and you should see there that it changed. And that's showing that it is indeed the style component. So that's one thing that I think is pretty cool. Again, like, because any item that is inside of this container, we could add these individual elements. So let's say that we wanted to take this text and put it in here. Again, I'm really regretting my choice on not using prettier. And it looks like that's coming around pretty well. But let's say that we wanted to quickly remove this, and let's see like what happens. Oof, yeah, definitely not as cool. So we'll leave that there. Again, this is the demonstration of nesting, which I find is pretty useful. So then let's say that we went here and we're like, oh, for some reason we really want message to have its own styled component rather than do this nesting class style. So what we would do here is we would do const. Ugh, it's definitely not a spelling day. Really, let's be honest, what day is a spelling day for me? It's really hard to say. And what is this message going to be? The message is going to be a div, so we'll say style.div. We'll do that template literal. And then we'll take the text here and we'll paste it in here. And again, styling is so bad. And now let's see what happens. Might not have been super useful, but we would come here. We would say message. And it's the same. So what about our buttons, right? So if we were here and we wanted to adapt the button style, let's actually get rid of this. If we wanted to adapt the button style, we could just put that in this container here. And make sure it's the same. It's looking a little bit sad. Why is it looking sad, you might ask? Well, let's go ahead and make sure that we have the button class in here. Probably working too quickly. I mean, obviously I'm not getting paid, so does that really work? You'll notice that styling has shown up again. And then lastly, let's say that we wanted to create a component called sites. So here we go. You probably know where this is going, so I'm using capital. You could use a different styling technique if you want. Let's say that this was div. And then we'll take sites here. We'll put it in here. Justify. And then here we'll say sites. Sites. And come back over here. Looking pretty good. Okay, so sort of the last thing I want to bring up is these are all style.divs, right? But like, let's say that we wanted to do something like super crazy, which is like make the H1 not white, but red or gray or blue or something else. Now, we could do that here, right? We could say that inside a div, the color for the H1 is red. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a styled component. So here we'll call this gee whiz. So const, we'll call this main title because we're being so semantic that it's great. Styled.h1, right? Because it's going to be h1 tag, not div. And we'll say color teal. We'll say red. And styles is not styled. We'll say teal. Let's see if teal is a real color. And then we'll take this here, and instead of this being an h1, we'll say main title. Wow, wow, wow. Isn't that amazing? That's really up to you to decide. But in this video, we did go over how to convert essentially regular CSS to styled components. Because we're no longer using this, we could delete this file. bada bing, bada boom. And if we were sort of being more detailed oriented, we could remove that reference and then it would be there. So again, in this video, we wanted to look at how to use the styled components library with React to create styled components, which again allow you to write CSS directly inside of JavaScript and offer a lot of advantages. So if you have any questions or comments, add them in the comments section. If you have suggestions or questions, ideas for other videos or topics, add them in the comment section as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers.